Alright, been a while since I've ranted my mouth on anything. Mainly just been busy with, well, my winter hobby is snowboarding, and I like my games a lot, but you know, alone at night, games are great, but it's nice to go out and do other things when the time is right. In fact, I'm going to go boarding again tomorrow, and it looks like it's going to be the last day. As on Monday, the place I go closes up for the season. Not too bad, considering it's, the end of March. But, gotta wait all summer and all fall before I get to do it again. So anyway, just gonna do, well, if you've read the title of this video, I'm gonna show you some books, but just a quick note. When a lot of people talk about the X68000 computer, one thing that's always a very popular subject are Dojin games, fan-made games, whatever you want to call them. Games just made by strictly amateurs. And these were released in a variety of different ways. A lot of them were only released in places like Comic-Cat conventions or Dojin shops, and I've got a stack of those here, like Ray Shoot. This one's actually pretty fun. I like this one a lot. Or Tokimeki Tyson. We got Moon Soldier 2. There's a lot of Sailor Moon games. Moon Fighter, Super Moon Fighter and Moon Fighter X. Moon Fighter X is actually an add-on to Super Moon Fighter. You can't play it by itself. You need to have the Super Moon Fighter disc in Drive 1 and Moon Fighter X and Drive 0 to actually play the X version. And it's honestly not a very good game, but it's fun to mess with. God, this is blazing. And yeah, this is, if you're looking at these are in fact original copies. This is how these were sold. This is a terrible, terrible... I like my pornographic fighting games, but this one's just awful. Here's quite a popular one. Master Striker Zero. A caravan shooting game. Really, really fun. I actually prefer it to the more popular sequel, Zero Ray. Love the cover art on these. I kind of like to collect the original Dojin games, especially the ones that were released like this. Just, hand-drawn, photocopied. That's just a work of art for a very nice game. Oh, we've got this piece of shit. There's got to be like a million Dojin fighting games. Got this one. This one's actually, I just love the art on some of these, especially like in here where, it's two-player split screen, and it advises you to make a stack out of disc boxes, so the two players can't see each other. A lot like Combat on the 2600. So it is kind of neat though, because it uses rotation for the ground, and it's split screen. But yeah. Now we got this piece of shit. This one actually doesn't work. This one's dead. And everything I've attempted to restore it, this one's dead. But I only spent like $1 on it, and it's not really a very good game anyway. But worth just holding on to, because, yeah, I like the art on these. So that's one way, Dojin games were actually released. Conventions, some Dojin shops. But then, of course, they were also released in, the Takedo vending machines. Which, yeah, they basically, in the 90s, the Takedo company actually made vending machines that you'd put money in, and it'd spit out whatever game you wanted on discs, and, then they'd give you a little case, but as you can see, you actually had to label them by hand. But, this is Star Trader here, a very nice remake of the PC-88 game by Falcom. And yes, this is this is in fact a true original copy, labeled by hand in pencil, of all things, way back in 1993 when this came out. Fortunately, Star Trader on the X68000 never got a full box release. I'm tempted to just buy a PC-88 copy, just to actually have a box and manual to stuff these in. But this is you know, an actual original copy. In fact, this one's kind of neat because it even came with the like the printouts. Like this is, you know, if you bought a Takara game machine or a Takara version game out of the machine, this was what you got as a manual. And it even came with the receipt as well. Someone spent 2,000 yen to get their Star Trader back in March 7th, 1993 at 5:28 p.m. and 44 seconds. The thing I really love about these papers too is the ads on the back. You too can buy a dot matrix printer with 7 colors for, oh, about $2 grand in today's money. Probably more than that. Actually, look at inflation. I've also got C on Z, which is another decent Dojin shooter. There's about 20 million of them, also labeled in pencil. And this was also only released in these machines. They do come with a pretty decent little case, though. Alright, and then finally, the real subject of this video is books that came with games. So we'll start with the Login Software Contest book. Login magazine was made by ASCII. It covered pretty much every Japanese computer back in the day, and they decided to have an X68000 fan game contest. And when it was over, they picked the best 12 and released them commercially in this book. As you can see, it comes with 4 discs containing 12 games. And it's a hardcover and a pretty nice book, so let's take a look at this. So just some shots of the, you know, there's Galaxy 2, that's Bradion. So yeah, Dojin games are, you know, a lot of them, it's interesting. You'll get some stuff like Galaxy 2, which is the main reason most people want this one, which is, you know, it looks like a high-budget, professionally made game. And then you've got other stuff that's, well, like Bradion here, which is a 3D space shooter. It's actually pretty fun, but honestly, it looks like an Atari game in 3D. I mean, don't take that the wrong way. It's still, I quite like this one, but like the polygons, it seriously looks like someone just took an Atari 2600 and put it in, and then made a polygonal game out of it. But yeah, since it was a contest, you know, there's different genres. This is definitely one of the, probably the more popular item. If you look around, you can get it pretty cheap, though. I actually didn't pay a dime for this, because this was given to me by a very good dude. I'm not going to mention his name, just so he doesn't get spammed with requests for free crap. But big thank you to the guy that gave me this. I'm sure he's going to watch it. So, the winner of the contest was, of course, Galaxy 2, unsurprisingly. Which won 15 mon and I hate doing math. I suck at math. But yeah, that's a pretty good chunk of money. 1 mon is, well, about $100, so 50 times 100, blah, 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 blah. Fuck math. Math is for losers and people that actually care about numbers. I don't. So yeah, Galaxy 2 is definitely the main attraction of this collection. Won the contest for a very good reason. I mean, very, very Gradius-inspired game. Reminds me a lot of Gradius Gaiden, although this came out way earlier than Gradius Gaiden. And like, yeah, like the flame stage is one of my favorites. It just looks so nice. One of these days, hopefully I And the game actually has a lot of difficulty settings, and you have to like unlock them, which I haven't been able to do yet. I think you have to beat all the bosses before the timer runs out, but that's another project for another day. Then the next game is the X68000 set, which is, I haven't actually bothered to play this one yet. I'm just not really a big fan of this style of simulation game. And we got Baradion, which this one I might do a video of at some point. This one's, it looks very much like an Atari game in 3D, and it's extremely smooth. It's also really, really hard, but I mean, just like, it's also totally controlled by the mouse, which is a little weird at first, but it works okay, and yeah, it's a pretty fun one. We got Camelot, or Camerot. Though to the Japanese, they're both the exact same word, which is kind of an RPG-ish dungeon crawler. I haven't actually played that one yet. I just don't really have time for the longer games anymore. Then we have Ijisai, which is a puzzle game, which I also haven't actually tried this one yet. Though, there's a reason for it, I'll get to that in a minute. And then we've got Dungeon Management, which is kind of like a dungeon keeper style game, where you kind of make your own dungeon, and then you can actually like explore it or defend it, I think. But as you can probably imagine, I haven't played that one yet. Alright. And then we get to Jesus. Puzzle game, which admittedly that's another one I haven't tried yet, but more in a minute. Then we have My Today's Job. Yes, that's actually what it's called, My Today's Job, which is kind of a neat one. I really, really suck at it, but you kind of fly around in like a hang glider, and the idea is to actually like take pictures of stuff. And if it's a really good picture, you get like more money and stuff. And thing though, it's entirely controlled by the mouse, and I don't really have a place to put a mouse, so I haven't played too many real mouse heavy games, but that's a pretty good one. We got Choro Choro, which is a top-down racing game, and it's alright. It's not the best game in this genre, but again, this is fan-made stuff. But there's another one that's a game similar to this that's also fan-made in another book that I'll get to in a minute that I much prefer to play. But this one's pretty fun for a distraction. It's got some weird stuff though, like every track has a stoplight, and once it turns red, like you can't, like it freezes and you can't go through it. There are also a few tracks where the entire track rotates, so you're like constantly spinning in a circle as you're trying to go around. So yeah, it's a pretty decent little, fan-made racer, but not my favorite. Then we got Russius, which as you can see is a shooter, and it's a pretty cool one. It's very Darius-esque, meaning how it works is you actually capture enemies, and which then attack with you. They can absorb shots until they explode, and when you have two, you can explode one as a bomb. It's a pretty good shooter. I haven't had a lot of time to spend with this one yet, because there's a few that I find more, that draw me faster, but I definitely am going to spend a lot of time with this one when I get a chance. Now that the snowboard season's over, I'll probably be doing that more. But yeah. Then we've got Quarto, however you want to say it. And this one is a horizontal shooter. Yeah, a lot of people like this, probably want this book just because it's got, 3 original distinct Dojin shooters with it. And honestly, it's worth getting this just for Galaxy 2, I'd say. And this is a game that nice in pictures, but when you actually play it, they look a little funky. Again, you know, it's a fan-made game, so I'm not going to complain, but the interesting thing with fan-made shooters is that people tend to make the shooter they always wanted to play. Meaning, you know, they're like, oh, I wish a shooter had this feature, so that's what they make. So, because of this, you get a lot of really gimmicky fan-made shooters. And this is a very gimmicky game. How this one works, being a shooter, and since a lot of people will probably want to see it, it probably will get its own video at some point, but you basically have two main gimmicks. One is that you control the size of your ship. Like, by hitting a button, you have three sizes: large, medium, and small. Obviously, the smaller you are, the easier it is to dodge stuff, but the larger you are, the more powerful you are. So, you know, when you make yourself tiny size, you can't kill anything, and when you're huge, you're just going to get shot down. So you got to constantly switch your size, which, that works. But the other gimmick are the options, orbs that rotate around you. There's, you know, each one has like its own power-up meter. So, like, if you get red, if the red one touches a power-up twice, that changes your shot. And so it's like a balance, and on top of that, you also control the distance they are from your ship. You can move them outward in a huge circle, or you can bring them in tight. So it seems like a pretty decent, you know, shooter, considering, you know, it's fan-made and everything. But it's got a lot going on. It's very gimmicky, and you're constantly changing your ship size, you're constantly adjusting your option size, plus you're making sure the options touch the power-ups you want, because depending on, you know, the combination you pick up totally determines on what you're actually shooting. So it's a very, very gimmicky game. But you can do far worse, and I do enjoy it. The music's really weird, though. It's like super, super happy. Almost like circus music. But, we got Overdriver. This one I will definitely do a video on. Hopefully once I can actually beat it. This is definitely my number 2 game in the set. In some ways, it might actually be my number 1. Galaxy 2 wins in just playability, graphics, atmosphere, but this is a really fun little shooter. The graphics are a bit low detail in some parts, but it's actually a really neat game. The gimmick on this one is that you have 2 little anchor things that you shoot out and to latch onto stuff. And it's, in some ways, I mean, it's very much a memorizer, and it's almost like a puzzle game in that you need to use your anchors the right way. Like, at this spot, like, you know, it kind of gives you an example here, but see, what you gotta do is you gotta, like, link your anchors to these dudes, and even after they're dead, they keep moving, and then they go around this, because it's like, when your anchors are attached, you shoot along them like a line, and the later levels get really, really hard, because there's, like, you have to use your anchors as, like, lightning rods. It's a really neat idea. The only downfall is, you pretty much have to play each level exactly like the creator imagined you'd play them, or you're going to die. You know, there's pretty much no room for variance. It's, you figure out what exactly was in the creator's mind, or you're dead. But I really like this one. So, we will definitely, you know, do a real video of Overdrive, hopefully once I can beat it, or at least get far enough to give you a good idea. That's all for the color pages. The rest of the book is actually the actual instructions on how to play the games. You know, it's pretty much a manual for all of them. It has, like, their compatibility, and, you know, what the buttons do, what the options are. Yeah, basically just, you know, manuals. And that's pretty much it for the book. The discs come in an envelope in the back. And as you're probably wondering, how the hell do you fit 12 full games on 4 discs? It's actually, in case anyone ever picks one of these up, how this works is, the games are actually compressed. They're in LZH files, and you have the index on the back. As you can see, mine's got lots of pink marker in it, but again, I didn't pay a dime for this, so I'm not complaining. And there's instructions here, but they're all in Japanese. So, quick explanation is, the game comes with 4 discs. Disc 4 is actually the boot disc. You boot the computer with disc 4, and then what you do, which is it shows here, and then you get to when it dumps you with the prompt, you enter the number of the game you want to make. So, like, if you want to make Galaxy 2, you hit 1 and enter. If you want to make Overdriver, you type in 12 and enter. And then what it does is it actually unzips the games and makes them into their own set of discs. Meaning, you can't play games off of the discs this comes with. You need blank discs to make the games. And that's kind of what this is. Like, you know, Galaxy requires 2 discs. Or Bradion is only a 1-disc game. The Darius style capture shooter requires 3. Of course, you can always rewrite your old discs if you want to, but if you actually want to have all 12 games on their own set of discs, you need, well, add these numbers up, and that's how many you need. And then this is what the data is on. So, like, if you want to make Galaxy 2, you boot up with disc 4, you type in 1, you hit enter. It'll then tell you that you need 2 discs. So first what it'll do is it'll actually format them. And then after it's formatted them, you then have to eject, you know, the boot discs, number 4, and then you put in number 1, which is the data disk. And then it unzips and it extracts all the files, it copies them over, and then when you're done, you have an A disk and a B disk, and you just launch them as normal. So, yeah, you can't actually boot the games directly. You have to make your own copy. But yeah, it's a nice book. If you're like me and you like kind of having, you know, the real deal even on the Dojin shooters, this is what you get for these 12. But yeah, nice book, nice collection piece. Depending on where you look, this one can go for quite a bit of money, but it also can be had very cheaply if you look in the right spot. Yeah, a nice little book. Okay, moving on to number 2 is The World of X68000. This is a softcover book, not hardcover, but a very interesting one. As you can see, it comes with 3 discs, and it comes with 5 games. We've got GJ, Formula X, Ohime-sama, Fortress Attack, and Logic Crush. First thing you find is an advertisement for the X68000 double page ad. Too bad. Whenever I see this, you know, the 030, kind of makes me a little sad. Sharp really shot themselves in the foot with that system. So much wasted potential. But alright, anyway, the first part is basically the manual for the games, and it's a very, you know, even a simple game like Ohime-sama, which is basically, you know, you basically like catch stuff. Very, very simple arcade game with a nice sense of humor. But even in a simple game, this actually has, there's a lot of info in here on each game, which I really like. Of course, it's all in Japanese, but there's a lot of good stuff. Fortress Attack is probably the most interesting game to people in this book, as it's a horizontal shooter. It's very, very inspired by Konami's Thundercross for certain. I'll probably do a vid on this one at some point. The game is a bit rough around the edges. I mean, graphically it's nothing truly special, but it looks decent. It also has some pretty awesome FM music, and does also support the SC55 MIDI module, which is kind of neat. You don't see too many Dojin shooters that support MIDI. Though in some ways I think I prefer the FM soundtrack in this game. But yeah, you know, you can get 4 options or special weapons. And the levels remind me a lot of Thundercross. My only issue with this one is that it's a bit unforgiving. I mean, this one actually you have a shield system, but it only absorbs bullets, you know, enemies kill you instantly. But it's just got, this game has a lot of surprise, in-your-face attacks that just, you tend to get killed a lot until you've memorized the level, basically. But again, you know, this book originally sold for like $25, so you're paying like, I don't know, $3 for the game, considering the whole package. So it's a decent little shooter. And again, there's a lot of information on it. There's even a few extra options if you mess around with the disc. Then we got Logic Crush, which is it's a puzzle game, an action puzzle game, and yeah, not really my kind of game, but it's, if you like that kind of stuff, it's fine. Oh, this camera's killing my hand. So moving on, we got GJ, which is a very, very simple game, but it's a fun one to waste, you know, like a half hour on. Basically, you're in a fighter pilot, you chase down another fighter pilot, you put your crosshair on him for a few seconds till your missile locks on and you blow him away. It's done in wireframe graphics. It's very smooth, and you know, it's basically just lock on and shoot. You can't, nothing fires at you. You can't actually die. It's just based on a timer and see how many targets you can shoot down. It does have two different background music tracks which you can switch between, and you know, it's nothing really special, but it's a fun way to kill 20-30 minutes. And we got Formula X, which is another top-down racer, and this is the one I prefer. This one's really fun. Really nice graphics. It supports both the MT32 and the SC55 MIDI modes. And this one is completely controlled by 2 buttons. You can use the stick or a D-pad, but it's really not meant to be. You got, you know, 1 button to turn left, 1 to turn right, and you push both together to slow down and go into reverse. And when you're not holding, you know, slow down, you're automatically accelerating. And the controls, you know, it's just 2 buttons, and it's meant for that because this game supports freaking 8 players at once. And as you can see, player 1 is actually on the mouse, then 2 and 3 are the joypads, and then you got all the keyboards. You also can daisy chain up to 8 joysticks if you've got the hardware for it. But yeah, it's fully set up to play 8 players on 1 machine using pretty much every port if you're up for it. But yeah, pretty nice graphics, nice music, very fun little racing game. I quite like it. One thing I like about this series is you don't have to use your own discs to play the games. They're just, the discs are ready to go. It's as I said, it's 3 discs. Fortress Attack and GJ are on the same disc, and I think and then he may somehow Logic Crusher on the same disc. How it works is you put the disc in drive 0 to boot up one of the games, and you put it in drive 1 to boot up the other. And Formula X is big enough that it's on its own disc. But yeah, nice stuff. Then we get sheet music. Tons of it. Just for the game, basically the highlights of the games. And then one of the coolest parts is the secret section. There's a lot of pretty crazy, you know, as far as like, you know, secrets and codes and, you know, weird hidden options in games. You know, the X68000 isn't really documented all that well, and this book is full of secrets, and some of which are quite useful. And like, I was pleased to find out that Gradius actually does have a 15 kilohertz mode. So like, you know, there's that. But some of these are actually pretty obscure. Like one that I was amazed by is in Salamander. If you're wondering what this weird picture is, now this won't affect a whole lot of people, but if you're playing Salamander on an original like 15-inch monitor like I am, and it looks fine in 31K, but if you want to put it in low res, which looks better with the scan lines, the picture's a bit too big for the monitor, meaning, you know, it's overscanned, underscanned, whatever, but you can't see anything, which makes it kind of lame. and you don't get a whole lot of monitor size options. But by using the code that's here, it'll actually boot up the game with everything drawn to a quarter size smaller. So everything's, 75% of normal size, meaning when you run in 15K, it all actually looks proper on, the standard monitor. So I can actually play Salamander in low res and see everything now. What this is actually a picture of it running at quarter size in 31K, which is why it looks, weird as hell and you get the borders. But it's really meant for 15K. Why the monitor doesn't do this exactly, and more importantly, why this wasn't in the manual of the game is beyond me. The game's manual tells you how to use 15K, but it doesn't mention the size changing at all. But at least I know it now. And there's other stuff, like you can select which round you're on, and what are some other neat ones? Here's one that some people probably don't know about. Super Hang-On. I don't actually have Super Hang-On yet, but it's got like a mini game, a secret mini game that, as you can see, is like Atari 2600 quality. But that's included in every copy of Super Hang-On. Yeah, we got River City Ransom, debug mode, and Twinbee stuff. Some of these I think are pretty common, like how the original Pac-Man is included with Pac-Mania. But some of these are really weird, like Full Throttle here tells you how to use the debug mode, which the debug mode allows you to actually play the game in 15 kilohertz. Why the hell the game doesn't have this as a normal option is beyond me, but there's a way to do it through the game's built-in debug mode. Martian Mazes, weird PCM soundtrack, genocide stuff. As you can see, there's a ton of them. Phalanxes drop the skirt off the girl and see her panties, which I think everyone knows already. Plus how to access the secret levels. Oh, Afterburners. Afterburner has a graphic editor hidden in it. I mean, seriously, what the fuck is that? And yeah, that's an Afterburner. Again, by Tomadan has a lot of weird stuff based on the timer. What else is in here? The various Fantasy Zone stuff, such as the Fantasy Zone 3D, how to access the space area level. Bosconian's got some interesting features that I wasn't aware of. Like you can actually make the narrator that screams blast off every level. You can make it so that his voice actually echoes or not, which sounds pretty cool. It also has a level skip, and there's also like secret messages like "Happy Birthday," depending on which you have your system's clock set at the right time. Just a lot of weird little hidden stuff that you normally wouldn't. That I personally had no clue of, and most of the stuff isn't documented so well on the internet, especially not in English. Arcade test mode for Gradius 2. Just goes on and on and on. There's even one for Gemini Wing, which lets you up the credits from 3 to 9, which helps a hell of a lot for that freaking game. There's one for Nias over here, which allows you to, unlocks all the levels so you can start wherever you want. Even stuff like Tetris. A few extra options in Star Wars I wasn't aware of. Yeah, just a lot of cool little secrets. And the little envelope that the discs come in. So yeah, this one is actually really cheap. I spent $10 on this. If you look online at the typical like X68000 sellers, they'll probably charge you a lot for it. But I actually got this off of Amazon. Of all places. That's the thing, since it's actually, a book, and sold as a book with discs, not software, but actually sold as a book, you can find out a lot of Japanese bookstores for, well, as I said, off of Amazon for $10. And we got one more to look at today, which is its sequel, The World of X68000 2, which comes with 5 programs on 4 floppy disks. Again, you don't have to make your own, you can just play the disks it comes with directly, which are C, Kanji, I forget, Rush, Zenfia, a vertical shooter, Useful, and T94X. T94X I already did a video of, which has that really cool, well, you know, it doesn't look so much today, but the FMV intro 8-player tank game. Useful is a utility that's basically for sprite and font ripping. Pretty cool idea, actually. These days, most people that wanted to do this would probably just use an emulator, so it's not so useful anymore, but how this works is basically you load up any game you want to, then you eject the disk, you put in the Useful disk, and you reboot the system. When Useful boots up, it actually keeps the previous game's data all in the RAM, and then it searches the RAM so you can edit, rip the sprites, the fonts, pretty much all the graphics at your leisure just by rebooting. Pretty neat little program, but again, kind of just more of a toy these days. Zenfia is a awesome, I repeat, fucking awesome vertical shooter. This one, a video will be coming soon. Whoever made this game was obviously a big fan of sprite scaling, because it uses a lot of scaled sprites. It's got some neat background stuff, and has a fucking fantastic SC55 MIDI soundtrack. The FM is good, but holy shit, this is one of the best MIDI soundtracks I've heard yet. And from a Dojin shooter, I'm impressed. Very hard game, but I love it. I'm glad I got this book just for it. Rush is basically a game where you're a puck and there's holes and you want to knock all the other pucks into the other holes. Be the last man survivor. And it's actually 2-player split screen. And it's kind of a neat one because you can link up to 4 systems and do a full 8 players on 4 systems. But what's really neat is how you link up. You can use the serial, of course, but you can also do it through the MIDI ports. You can actually daisy chain 4 computers together using the input and output MIDI ports to play this game in 8-player mode, which is, you know, it wouldn't even occur to me to use the MIDI ports to do system link, but that's what this game does. The C game is basically a very, very fun casual game, meaning how it works is, well, I assume most people haven't taken a Japanese driver's test, but the Japanese driver's test, they don't use letters and numbers. You have to hit, you know, if it's up, you have to hit up. If it's down, you have to hit down. And there's a whole different bunch of game modes that do different things. It's essentially Simon Says, but you can even do like 2 at once. There's even a triple mode where you have 3 at once and you can't make any mistakes, and it's a lot of fun to mess around with. So inside, you know, it's similar to the first book. Like it starts right off with the C game, which doesn't look so hot from just screenshots, but it's really fun actually. And you know, and then we've got Rush, which very nice looking game for simple but nice looking. And again, they really went all out in these kind of manuals. They've got, you know, all the different maps and how they work. Just neat stuff. Then we got Zenfia, which is definitely the #1 reason to own this book. Wonderful little shooter, unless you don't like sprite scaling, because it uses a ton of it. Definitely, I mean, it's not as good as Galaxy 2, but God, I love the MIDI in this game. Pretty challenging too. Then how to use Useful, like it's showing you how to like rip sprites out of like Puyo Puyo. But yeah, really neat idea. But again, it's not something that, well, I'll never really use it for more than just messing around with. T94X, which very nice, you know, this one actually has a registration card in it. Of all the books, this is the one that I spent the most money on. but this book was actually still brand new. Everything was 100% factory sealed, brand new. So it's in really good condition, and even then it's still, I spent about $50 on this one, I'll admit. But, I just wanted to complete the collection, and it was brand new. Again, I bought this off of Amazon. And then, interestingly enough, it has a whole strategy guide on Formula X from the first book, which, as I said, this is definitely my favorite top-down racer on the system so far. Apparently they had a whole contest, and the guy that won, the world champion, as they call him, with Formula X, they show maps on the route to take through the level to get the fastest times. Because remember, this game, you don't actually control your acceleration. You can slow down and you turn, and that's it. You do also have to pit and refuel, which is kind of neat. But so yeah, there's a whole strategy guide for that game's first book. Then we get more sheet music for the games, which is, kind of a neat thing to include. And then again, we have more secrets. This book there aren't anywhere near as many secrets as the first book. The first book has a ton of them. This one, this book came out pretty late into the life of the system. So, but there's still some neat ones, like there's Puyo Puyo, Nemesis 90 Kai, Street Fighter 2 Dash. Then a lot of stuff for Dracula, actually. It tells you where all the secret one-ups are, and, good places to rack up points. It also reveals just a lot of details on how the game works, like how the whip upgrades appear. Well, the first whip upgrade appears after you collect 4 hearts, the second appears after you have 8 hearts. Also, it mentions a few comparisons with the Famicom original. Plus, it mentions the secret general MIDI option. Yes, this game actually has 100% general MIDI compatible mode, which very few people are aware of. Because it's kind of a secret, but it's kind of a neat idea because it allows you to use Dracula with whatever piece of shit MIDI module you got lying around. If you want to use a piece of crap TG100, you can do it as long as it's general MIDI compatible. And yeah, this one actually, the discs come in this really nice kind of cardboard holder. It's really thick and it opens in the back, so it's a lot more protective. So yeah, this one, of the two World of X68K books, this one definitely has the better games. Sinfia is a much better shooter than Fortress Attack is, and T94X is worth playing just for that crazy FMV intro, and C and Rush are also pretty good too. Though the first book is still, the first book is really cheap, at least in Japan anyway, and this game is insane, but fun. Fortress Attack is a bit rough around the edges, but it's hard to hate a Thundercross-inspired shooter. And the other games are pretty decent, and I do really like Formula X. So yeah. I'm not particularly aware of other books that actually came with game software. There was like the freeware software book that came with discs, which I haven't really looked at too much yet. They might have a few games, but it's just kind of neat to see these kind of things. And these are, all 3 of these books are very nice, kind of, just pieces to have if you're a fan of the system and the hardware and want to pay your respect to the original games as opposed to just downloading them. Yeah, very nice to have. So, just a quick look, and I'll probably do videos of the shooters, and probably do Formula X, and some of the more interesting ones as I get around to them. But yeah, definitely good stuff, and recommended. I highly recommend you track these down if you've got the system and something a little different. The one thing I really do like about the fan games is they're all pretty much original. The X68K is mostly known for its arcade ports, and it's got some they're all really good, but It's nice to have some original stuff, too. Admittedly, most of the arcade ports are enhanced with things like MIDI options and other weird stuff. But it is nice to have original stuff, and the fan games are typically as original as you can get. So, I do quite like exploring that territory with the system. And the first book, in my opinion, is almost worth having just for all the secrets. There's a ton of them in here, and, you know, it's the kind of thing that eventually, I'm assuming, they might be documented, but there's very little information on the X68000 for English speakers. And even if you do, well, if you've ever attempted to explore Japanese websites, they all look like they were made in the year 1985. They're typically very convoluted and annoying with really, really bad message board systems, and even if you speak the language, they're a pain in the ass to explore. But, so, I'm glad I got this book just for all those secrets, because some of them I had no idea of myself, and probably going to pick up Super Hang-On soon, just so I can play the cheesy little mini game. Alright, well, that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it, and, see you around.